Ben Shapiro schooled by Degrasse Tyson on trans issues. There's the Vosh one. Neil deGrasse Tyson eviscerates Ben Shapiro on trans rights. This is from the Surfs. Scroll down a little bit. It's changed since I first looked. There's a TYT one on here somewhere too. There's like 4 or 5 of these bread tubers who have all made videos on this on a 2-year-old video in the last week.
It seems like the left is militating against the advent of science. One of those areas is the area of transgenderism, where the argument
curiously, there's no I have no transgender letters.
It's true. It was just nothing in the book.
Yeah,
I know. We've strayed now far from the topic of your book, but since I have you here and you're a science person who knows science, I'm going to ask you to science for me a little bit.
Sure.
But when it comes to transgenderism, the argument that is typically made by gender theorists is that gender is entirely separate from sex. You've seen the argument made that it makes no difference on average if men are stronger than women are, and that if we were to allow transgender women to compete with non-transgender women, then this would somehow not disadvantage biological women. And this seems to me absolutely ascientific, that if we're actually going to have a discussion about gender and sex, that should be based in data, which suggests that mammals are in fact binary in terms of their sex, unless you have intersex.
We segregate nearly all sports by gender. Otherwise, why do you even give a shit?
Time out right there. Time out right there. You were asked about a scientific question. Scientifically, is there a difference between men and women? That's basically what you were asked. And his answer, other than sports, was, why do we give a shit? Well, we give a shit for many reasons. For one, it's a cultural fight right now, specifically to get, I'm using air quotes, trans rights and a whole lot of other nonsense, and to basically throw biology out the window in favor of people's feelings. But did you catch his answer there? Why do you care? That's not a fucking scientific opinion. That's not science. Ben specifically said, since I have a scientist here.
What someone identifies with. That we live in a free country, and with consenting adults and people free expression of who and what they are.
Yeah, on adult level, I agree with you. I think it does matter what you teach children.
That's what I'm saying. And so there's the matrix of what you are biologically, how you express yourself, who you choose as a sexual partner. If we actually live in a free country, as we tell ourselves, people's freedom to behave in any of those ways should not concern you at all. Nor are they requiring that you behave that way. Okay? Well, this is for their own freedoms, because we live in a free country. Now, what is unresolved here is, what do you do with sports? It's unresolved. And I've followed that closely, and I don't see any meaningful solutions to come down off of that. We know that hormones manifest differently in different people, and just the whole thing with steroids. Steroids are hormones, right? And we rallied against steroids in professional sports because it gives you an undue advantage. So, I've tried to think of what the future of sports would be in the world of a gender spectrum. And it may be, you don't specify whether it's a male or female sport. You just take measurements of what your hormonal balances are. And so you compete based on your hormonal. This is thought I had. I don't know. I don't know where it's going to land.
The WNBA won't be in business for very long if that's the case.
It would just be, you'd have to find some way to compete people against each other if you still care that sports is an interesting activity.
I guess the area where it does come up.
I hate this shit. We're going to talk about the truth about science. Neil is all about the science until it comes to something like this. And then suddenly science doesn't matter worth a fuck. And so people like him get to come up here, and people like the bread tubers, we see the scientist said. The scientist sold out science here. He pushed out of science right here. He should be fucking ashamed of himself for this interview.
In a non-sports area.
Yeah, tell me, 'cause I don't know.
So it would be, you talk in your book about the education of children and teaching children about science. And right now, children are being taught about the quote unquote gender spectrum, which is not scientifically based. That is a theory-based idea.
No, wait, hold on. People express themselves on a spectrum. So you learn that.
That's a social point, not a scientific point.
It's
meaning we express ourselves
hold on.
based in different languages. Is that something you teach in science class, or is that something that you teach when you're teaching language?
So whether the fact that people want to express themselves on a spectrum, on a gender spectrum, whether that fact is something you want to put in a sociology class or in a science class, maybe that remains to be determined. But it is a real fact about real society.
Well, of course, nobody's denying that people identify how they want to identify.
So